Hey guys, this is Jerry. I got one of the coolest interviews ever. So this is Jassa, and she grew up in China. So Jessa, let's welcome you. Awesome, 欢迎. And I am pretty sure 你的普通话说的比我的还流利. But we'll do this talk in English, but we can intersperse Chinese because I heard you speak Mandarin earlier. I'm like, wow, you got like an accent. At least your accent's more proper than mine because I'm a Southwestern dialect type of guy. So, anyways, welcome.
Hi, I'm Jassa. And yeah, I'm so happy that you reached out to me. It's just so funny with how long it's been, like what, 10 years
Yeah, yeah,
since we last spoke.
yeah.
And I'm just super excited. Like it's a full around circle to come back up again.
Yeah, because when I first discovered your videos, I think at that point you had just come to America or something. Like it was pretty recent that you were just like immigrated out of China. So it's like now you've been in America for a while. So you've literally kind of lived the life I've had, but you weren't born in China. So it's just like there's a lot of cool things to talk about.
你们要是有问题的话，你们可以问我，然后我下一次可以回答你们的问题。
When I first started my YouTube video, I think actually I've been in the States because it was like 2010,
Yeah.
2011. So I came 04. So I've been there for a while. And I think I was initially doing the YouTube video just to help me to not lose my Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
And I started posting, and at that point, I really don't know what to post. Like, I'm not a teacher per se, but I was like, okay, what do I do? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
let me just talk about myself first and then slowly do into lessons and just teach them what I know because my Mandarin speaking level is great, I
Mm-hmm.
will say, like for the most part. But when it comes to like the teaching part, or I don't think that my level is that high up there yet. So I was only teaching the things that I know. That I was like, okay, I know this. Let me teach this. I know this because my level is not like I left China when I was like 14. So
Mm-hmm.
I only know. Interesting thing is because I was talking to my Lala and she gave me more facts
Mm-hmm.
that I only learned Chinese when I was living with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived with them for 4 years.
Wow.
So my Chinese level is just 4 years of what I've known. But, it helps when you're living with them
Yeah.
and talking to them and daily practice type thing. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So when did you start living in China?
it was 96, I believe, 96 till 04. So really
Wow.
that's just 8 years.
Uh-huh.
This whole time I thought it was 10 years. So it's 8 years. 4 years I was with my parents, and then 4 years with my Chinese family.
Wow, that's so
Yeah.
cool. You really got to see China change, man, because from 96 to 2004, dude, China went from a country you could dismiss to a country you're like, ooh, this country's going somewhere.
I know it's a drastic change. Just like seeing my friends post and they were telling me my ayi, because we used to live in Shijiazhuang, Hebei Shijiazhuang, and she's just when I talked to her on WeChat, she's like, it has changed a lot since you were last here, like the new train system and just I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait. But
Yeah. Did you go to an international school when you were?
I went to quite a few different schools. So
Okay.
when I was first there, I went to the International Diplomatic School. Uh, it was called like the Pakistan 学校, like the Pakistan for International School, right
Wow.
there by Sanlitun, where all the embassies and stuff were. And then after that, I went to a School of Art school, 艺术学校. I can't remember the full name, but I did like gymnastics, ballet, and just the dancing part because my Lala saw like I really like dancing. Whether I'm good or not is a different story. um, and then prior to that, I think that was the most recent school that I went to. But prior to that, I went to like a regular boarding school in China where like I lived in school system, lived there, and I think it was like quite a few different school changes where one of them had uniform. It was like the blue and white uniform back then. Yeah. And then after that, I got taken out of school and I think I went to another school again, got taken out. They went to the dance school, and then obviously the transition of moving to the States.
Wow. And
Yeah.
I assume, so when you were living in China, you didn't speak much English, right? It was mostly speaking Chinese, or was it kind of 50-50?
A funny story. So it's so funny now that I'm much older. I am learning a lot more about myself and certain memories come back. But in the beginning, in my muyu is Mende. So like my native tongue is a West African language in Sierra Leone, West Africa, which is where I
What?
was born. Sierra Leone, West Africa. I was born there. And when I was in the States, I mean, when I was in China, I believe I knew how to speak Mende. And then we have Creole, which is like a broken English one. But then when I moved with my Chinese family, I forgot everything. So I forgot Mende and Creole, which was like semi-broken English. So when my transition of coming back to the States, so like this English you learn at a Chinese school is not per se the best.
Yeah.
And then especially back then. So I'm sure like now it's completely different. But back then it's not the best because I don't believe like the teachers even knew what they were saying for the most part. But um and then when you go home, it's not like you speak that language. When you're home, I'm speaking Mandarin,
Yeah.
and that's all I spoke.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came to the States, they held me back 2 years because my English is like my auntie was like, she doesn't know her ABCs. She doesn't know how to spell dog. So they held me back 2 years. Initially, they wanted to put me in elementary school. Obviously, I'll be too old to be the only person in elementary school, and I'm 14.
Yeah.
So they held me back. They put me in seventh grade, I believe. Seventh grade, and I was in like ESOL, English is a second language, class where,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was a struggle, but I made
Wow.
it.
Wow. Yeah, there's so much to break down there. So I was in China from about 98 to 2000.
Mhm.
And I remember talking about your English thing because I was in Chicago before then. Sometimes the English teacher would ask me questions because she didn't know how to say something. So
Mhm.
I know exactly when it comes to the English lessons,
Yeah.
how inefficient they were.
Mhm.
And then when I came back to the U.S. because I hadn't really spoke English for 2 years, they tried to hold me back too, but I BS'd my way through the test. And so even though I probably should have been held back, but I BS'd my way enough. The funny story I tell is that the guy who was testing me could barely speak English either. I don't know why. So on the listening comprehension, it wasn't completely my fault that I didn't understand anything. And I think he realized that he couldn't really speak English properly either. So he kind of gave me a high score on that, even though if it were a native speaker, maybe I would have failed anyways. But
Right.
I just remember he said primary school, and I'm like, where's this accent come from? Because I didn't grow up around too much diversity. I didn't know where the accents, where the people were. But yeah, so it's funny. You probably had to take like a bunch of
I did.
placements tests
I
and
did.
everything.
I did
Yeah.
have to take it, and I do not recall anything about it. I don't know if it was verbal or written, but either way, they put me in the SOL.
Hmm.
And then my aunt, she's like my mom, but she, once I came to the States, we lived with her for a little while. She did this where it was back then. Oh my gosh, I hated it. Like I felt like I had no life. But now, obviously, that I'm much older, I appreciate that she did that. She did this Silver Learning Center where every weekend I'll go there and I'll get math, science, and English lessons just to help me.
Yeah.
Back then, I don't think it really like helped me per se, but I'm sure it did somehow because you have those little quizzes that you have to take, and then anything that you don't know, you can ask them and they will help you out. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny you went to something like Sylvan because Chinese families a lot of times will send their kids, if not in high school, definitely. Sorry, if not in middle school, definitely in high school, to something like that too, like a
Yes.
busiban, as we say it in
Yes.
Chinese. So it's like they carry some of that over to America too. So like you're the only one on a Saturday or maybe after school on a weekday to continue learning
Yes.
academically. That
Like
is.
I feel like there's no life, It's just like why?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Was
yeah,
your experience in China, was it a lot of homework or was it pretty chill?
Well, here's the thing. I'm not a good school person per se because I found a whole bunch of things that I had back then in China. Um, I held on to a lot of my schoolworks, and one things that I do remember is I think because I have to backtrack. I have to really backtrack because I have to categorize this. Because when I was in the school for the diplomat kids and stuff, my grade wasn't good. I wasn't doing really good there, anyways. A lot of F's, and I wasn't really good. Every now and then I'll get a good grade because like you have to turn in and they have to review, like your parents have to review, if you finished your homework and all that stuff. So when I started living with my Chinese family, um, I think now thinking about it back then, I kind of took advantage because I am the only foreigner. So I don't think I really paid attention really well at school. I literally like for math problem, oh my goodness, I made all F's, like 63 or 65 and just terrible. And doing like long divisions and all these crazy high like hard math stuff that I'm just like, no, I cannot. Like even when I did my ballet, um, there are certain requirements. So you go every day to the class and the teacher will try to like bend you backwards and trying to get some flexibility going. And I'm like, oh, so at one point, I got to the point where my lala, they called because I got injured eventually, and my lala had to come to the school. And luckily, it was not with my gymnastic teacher, but it was with my ballet teacher. And she brought it up. My lala brought it up. Like there are certain things I wasn't doing because the teachers were telling me that I wasn't doing certain things. And obviously, my lala was there and I had to do it. So she had me do it. And I was, first of all, it's just a shame. I was embarrassed. I was young. I was just like, oh, going through this. But my teacher, she was actually a white lady for ballet back then. I believe for me and her, we're the only two foreigners that I know of. So sometimes every now and then I kind of slacked and do certain things. And every now and then where the teacher was actually, I did something really good because like they will teach like different type of dances, like different Chinese dances and Indian dance and all that stuff. So like there's certain things where my hips can go further out than most other students. And then she would like put me up front, like, 看看莎莎怎么做的, like be an example. I was like, oh, I finally did something good. But yeah, I think I kind of slacked back then. I really wish I would have not slacked and had like if it was me now telling my younger self, like say, just take it to heart and learn as much as you can. Now it's just like, oh, I wish I would have, stayed on it.
So you did ballet, you did gymnastics. So you
Mm-hmm.
did quite a lot of different type of active things.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I
Yep.
see. I see. And so then you came to America. Did you continue all that artsy stuff too, or did you take a break from that?
I did not. When I first came, none of that was continued. It was just school stuff. And I really wish I had the opportunity where I could have, but none of that continued. It was kind of unfortunate. But later on, I think I still didn't get into any dance stuff per se, but I kind of continued on in just things that I liked. And then acting came into place. And, yeah.
Yeah. So what made you decide, hey, let's start doing acting now? I mean, obviously you have a treasure trove of experiences to pull from that many other actors might not be able to do, but like what else inspired you to say, hey, let's go do some acting?
So the acting it was kind of where I'll backtrack a little bit. When I was in China, I think the acting blood started when I was in China. So my Ai and La La used to put me in these different 节目, like television shows and stuff. And one of them was 快乐家家家. I did the host. I was one. It's called Happy Home or something. I was one of the broadcaster person um for the show for the Chinese New Year back then. And then they did another show, I can't remember the name of it, where it had acting related.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I was cast as the villain, and I was really salty back then because I was like, why did I have to be the villain? Like, at such a young age
Yeah.
too, because I was like, what, 11, 12 when all of this stuff was going on. It probably younger than that, but even back then, it's so funny. As a child, I felt some type of way about it. But the acting stuff started then because they ended it in a sweet way where the villain eventually became kind and understanding and stuff. But I still kind of felt salty because like I want to be the lead, everybody wants to be the lead. But I got into acting since then. And then when I came to the States, I was living with my other aunt, and she has they're like my brothers. And he's into acting. Little Al. He does a lot of acting stuff. And from there, I started doing the acting things with him. I was his assistant. I was doing the behind the scenes stuff and doing just little things that he can teach me here and there. And then he would write certain skits and he would add me into it. And then my first feature film and stuff was with him. And then from there it just kind of built up. And then when I moved again, like I took a gap break where I stopped acting. And then when I moved here in Ohio, it was a long time before I finally said, I was like, okay, I need to get my butt into acting classes. And so then now here I'm trying to really try to be consistent and taking myself to classes and doing auditions. And it's hard. It's very competitive.
Yeah.
It's the thing is because you're so many talented actors.
Yeah.
And then it's just luck, really, to me, to be on. Like, you have to, like, basically now it's just me preparing for the time where I do get that big break, that I will be ready,
Yeah.
because I don't want to get the big break and I'm like, oh, I'm not ready,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
a lot of it right now is just preparation. And you know yeah, because it's so
Yeah.
hard. It's very, very hard.
I think this is just super interesting. And I wonder, do you ever audition for roles that speak Chinese?
I have not, and I've not been given the opportunity yet.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I still have a lot of work to do on my acting end as far as maybe how I word my resume,
Mm-hmm.
but I haven't had the opportunity to do that. When I was in Atlanta, I had little small like independent film where we translate certain things, and I was able to actually use Mandarin in actually a feature film that was in where it was actually my first paid gig. It was Blood Mountain, um, Bigfoot Blood Mountain, um, and I was no, that wasn't the movie. No, I take it back. That was a separate movie. That was the second film that was in. It was the same director, and he casted me in the second film. But the first one was Currencies. I believe it's currency of some sort. I can't remember. And I tried to find it on YouTube, but it's no longer on YouTube. But that was my first opportunity where I was able to use Mandarin in a film, in an independent short film.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This is interesting to me. So I've done very little bit of acting, but every time it's like there's always like, oh, where do you put this person? Because he's not completely Chinese, but he has Chinese ability. So I get that feeling. Eventually you'll have even more opportunities like that because it's just so rare. Like when I first found those videos of you on YouTube, I was like, this is so cool. Like, how many people can speak Chinese so well, but they don't look Chinese, right? That's just like
Right.
that's such a cool advantage somehow.
You know what's so crazy? Back then, it was something. Like 10 years from now, it was like, yeah, she's black and she speaks Chinese. But now, though, there's so many people that speak very fluent, like TikTok. Since TikTok thing, I'm just like amazed the amount of people where like they speak Mandarin so well, like way better than me. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. Like it's where like we definitely have that little bubble of foreigners that speak Mandarin Chinese really, really well. And it's just so funny because some Mandarin like Chinese people, they'll be like, oh, you speak better than me, but it's just like, I don't think so, but maybe it's just more of the pronunciation. But as far as like different level, where these people like they live and like literally live there in China and they're learning and so there's definitely a little bubble of Mandarin foreigner speakers for sure.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I will also add, there's also still a lot of people who are struggling to even get started, and I think that's a niche that you and I can fill on YouTube. The reason I'm saying this is because I had a channel back in the day that was teaching beginners Chinese, and I think I need to get you on it ASAP. I need to do episodes with you as a guest on it because that channel seemed to help people in two ways. One was people who are just starting. Sometimes it's hard to figure out who to learn from. So, this is accessible. You're accessible. I'm accessible, right? So, and then other people, they wanted more advanced Chinese explained, but more in an accessible academic way. That's different than if you asked a Chinese person if they can explain. So, like, those were the two niches I filled. And I think, like, that could be something you do, too. Like, I'm sure there's so many people who would love to learn from Jassa versus some like those standard Mandarin teachers that are like all proper and they speak perfect Mandarin. It's like sometimes people don't like learning from that. So
that's it's so funny that you said that because I think before back then you used to be in the dorm room, right? When you posted your videos, because I think like I was subscribed to your channel, but that was with my old channel. And then when you reached out to me again, like I looked at the name, and then obviously like I went through your I was like, this person looks so familiar. I went through your, I was like, you look so familiar, so familiar. And then I looked up your YouTube. I was like, oh, I remember you now. Like you used to be connected with me way back then, and I don't know. It's just funny, like because for me, the thing with the whole teaching part that I struggle with is consistency. And then after a while, because of the teaching, because I don't know, I don't have enough like like when you go through, like, I don't know what I can bring to the table per se. Like, yeah, I'll post teaching videos, and after a while, I just kind of get bored. I was like,
yeah,
oh, I
yeah.
don't know if I want to be like constantly like posting teaching videos.
That's
So,
exactly why I stopped that channel. Like I
yeah,
hadn't posted for like a year because like it's
yeah,
exactly like you said. It's like it takes consistency, and eventually you're like, if this is not my career, you kind of get bored.
or exactly. So I started like I haven't posted on my TikTok in a while as far as consistency wise, and then I took a break, and then I started posting a few videos here and there recently, but I'm trying to transition. I've posted some videos where it's just only the people I follow. Like I posted a video where it's just friends because I was contemplating, like I was like, I should delete my TikTok because I'm not really posting. And people that are like following me want to learn Mandarin, but I'm really getting bored at wanting to teach and stuff. So I said I'm gonna start translating videos and duet because I did one duet with a person where I spoke in Mandarin and she is obviously English speaker. So I was like, I'm gonna start editing videos and just do acting duets, but I was saying Mandarin and then I was trying to editing. And one thing that I struggle with, and I still struggle with, is the editing part. It's just so much work. And then back then when I stopped posting my YouTube video, I believe it's the same thing. Because the thing is you have the Pinyin version and you have the character and then you have the English. And back then, like I'm not a tech person and I'm not an editor, and just to trying to figure it out how to get this amount of word in that one little section to fit properly where people can see it. After a while, it's just like it put a toll on me. I was like, I just can't. I just want somebody to be my editor, and then I'll just be there and be in front of the camera. That would be so awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's an unfortunately a common thing that most of us have to deal with when we're kind of being our own. This is a weird word, but predator, producer, editor, being our own
Right.
predator. You got to do
Right.
everything, and then there's parts of the process you don't enjoy, right?
Right. Right. Right.
That being said, though, there are some really good editors, even in like Chinese areas in America, and they edit your videos more in like a cutesy Chinese way. So,
Really?
yeah, I had one girl who wanted. She was just like, "Yeah, I'll edit one of your videos for free just so you could see how I do it." And then I think, unfortunately, one of her family members passed away, so I never
Oh.
got to get her edit. But yeah, she was like, because I used to go to this Mandarin meetup that was like on the east side. So if you keep going east of LA, eventually you get to like super, super Chinese fobby communities. And so like I would practice my Mandarin there. And then she saw my video. She's like, oh, so this was in 2018. Maybe that was when you first found one of my channels. But 2018, I had a stint where I would just kind of do what you do. I would translate Chinese shows and roast them. And I had to stop the roasting part because, you know, YouTube's community guidelines changed. You couldn't be as mean, but like people enjoyed the translating of Chinese culture. So like that was a phase where I was really delving into how can I be a bridge, because before then I was also talking about TikTok. I was working at ByteDance. So I worked at the company that owned TikTok, and part of the reason I'm sure I got hired was because they're like, oh, this we need a bridge. You know, we can't really interact with Americans the way he can, but he can also understand our cultural nuances. So, yeah. Besides acting, I think if you ever, as Chinese companies expand into America, there's definitely going to be people who want a person like you. It's like you think there's people who really, really know Chinese or Chinese culture or whatever, but their situation's different than yours and mine, right? Because they're not living in America. That's the thing.
Right. That's true. Yeah. That's definitely true.
Yeah, exactly. So I spent many years thinking, whatever. But then every time I interact with a Chinese person who was here, they'd be like, you got this advantage, and eventually I started embracing it. So maybe I'm passing you the chicken soup talk that I got many years ago, where they're like, why don't you even intersperse Chinese into your English or intersperse English into your Chinese all the time? It's cool. Like they gave me that tip, and I was like, okay, I'll run with it.
Yeah, because like there's some videos where, because you know it's funny, that's how, like with my friends, that's how I talk. I will like speak some English and speak some Chinese. And then sometimes I get to the point where there's certain words where I don't know how to say it in English, or like not like I don't know, but I just can't remember at that moment. And I'll say it in Chinese. Or there's certain things where I would not know, I don't remember how to say it in Chinese, but I know how to say it in English, and I'll just say it in English. So we'll just go back and forth where both languages are mixed up, like especially when you're talking about somebody and then it's all gonna be all Mandarin, you know, because like nobody can understand it. But yeah. That's
Which then
pretty
brings
good.
up the topic, Jassa. Are your friends mostly like Chinese Americans, or it's kind of a mix?
It's a mixed pot, because like I have friends from all over, and it's just funny, like the little connections, you know, the connections you made through TikTok. I feel like even though we just know through TikTok, but I feel like I know them, they're my friends. I consider them as my friends. But as far as like the friends I talk to, Chinese, American, Indian, African. Like I feel like I have the whole world of friends from different countries. I think it's just mixed, you know, diverse. I have a diverse group of friends.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking at that channel of yours where you taught a little Chinese, the recent one, right? It's so funny that like the way you were thinking of teaching Chinese was very similar to how I was thinking of teaching Chinese too. I'm just looking at some of these old videos, like you're talking about the pinyin, how to pronounce it and stuff like that. It's so funny.
That's so like, yeah, it's, you know, the funny thing is I hate watching myself. Like, you know, because when you're editing the video and you have to go back and like go through the videos, but it's one of those where, well, when I'm watching myself by myself, it's okay. But when someone like there's a group of people watching me and I'm there, I'm just like, oh gosh. And then you start going to like, why do I sound like that? Oh, why did I say that? So it's just like one of those weird things. And then sometimes, you know, you just go back. Have you ever just go back when you look at the videos, like, why did I even post that video? Like,
oh yeah, I definitely have moments like that. And usually what happens is, if it's a bigger channel that's monetized, I'll members only it, so people have to pay to watch it. Or if it's a smaller channel, maybe I'll just hide it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I had some few videos where I'm just like cringing. Like, you know, you do like Facebook posts, and I have posts from years ago, and you know how Facebook start doing this memory thing, and I'm looking at the things, I'm just like, what was I even saying? Like literally I'll have a whole streak of dots, like periods going through. I'm like, that's so like, really? Like you really have no life and you have nothing else to say, that you just, you know, post that. But yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think this is a question that came to mind too. And I'll preface this by, like in the 90s, when I was in China, it was so rare to get someone that was a little different that people actually sort of let you get away with stuff. Was that kind of your experience? I mean, hearing that in school you kind of didn't try too much and nobody really cared. Like, was that kind of like you felt like there was a little bit of special treatment because you were foreign?
Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
Yes and no. It's like to a certain degree. Because back then I was still getting in trouble, with my Chinese family, or like I still get in trouble. Teachers will talk, um, but then there are certain times when I know it's just like, yeah, like you can't say anything, like whatever, or I'll just pretend like, huh, hmm? And then like like little things, but it's combination of both. Where because I know back then it's so funny now thinking about it because that's the only memory that I had. But back then, I felt like there was so much more per se as especially for me for culture shock when I first came to the States. I kept comparing it. Like, okay, like China had this, China had this, China had this, America didn't have this. And I feel like when I first came to the States, I was a little bit, I wouldn't say like depressed, but I definitely was probably depressed and sad because I didn't have the stuff that I had. Like for example, like I missed the little small shops that were there where you have the little food trucks that people will go around and know you can eat some jianbing and just the little small stuff like that. And then it will have parks everywhere. You can walk to places. I miss having just to ride my bikes and just go right down the street to the mall, and things like that where I will back then like I didn't really communicate with people that much. So like I would write my little journal and mix like what English word I knew and what Chinese words characters I knew, and I'll write it in my little journal and stuff. And I was definitely like in my own little bubble for sure until slowly I started, expanding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's super interesting. I guess everyone's is different. Being a little boy, right? One of the things I got away with, I got into a lot of fights, and I knew I wouldn't get in as much trouble just because it's like, what are you gonna do? You're just a kid getting into fights. So like, I felt like
Right.
if I got into that many fights and I were completely Chinese, the teachers probably would have like kicked my ass, forgive my French, more. Like, my joke is I only got my butt kicked twice by teachers, right? Whereas my classmates, because I went to a public school in China, they were getting their butts kicked at least once a week, if not. Some kids who are really bad were getting their butts kicked every day by the teacher. So like
Oh
I only got my
no.
butt kicked twice by a teacher. Actually, well, technically three times. Teachers laid their hands on me three times the whole time I was in China, and I wasn't a good kid. So I like considering that I had
That's
some
not bad.
privilege. Yeah, I had some
Yeah,
privilege that I didn't even realize until analyzing it years later. So
that's
you know
not
that
bad.
that's kind of sort of like how I thought about that question. It's like you're different, right? Like you're a girl and you're doing different activities. So it's like you're
Mhm.
probably also not like hitting other people. So it's
Right.
like
Yeah, I don't think I really got into fights per
yeah,
se. Like
yeah,
I don't think I did. It's so funny that you mentioned like the school thing. Like certain memories are just coming back at me, like where we'll have like the bed. And I remember actually I ran track for one of the schools before, and I was with like another two group. I think there were like a couple, or I don't remember, but we were all living in one room together, and it was just a different experience, like I enjoyed it. And then we'll have recess. Like that's not a thing here, and in America. And that's one thing I missed. Like in the middle where I would go to school and you're just dragging, your body's dragging. You're like, oh, I'm sleepy. Like, is it time for us to go like get a break yet? When is that gonna happen? They don't have that. And now that you mention it, it's just a little small memory coming back. Like we didn't have there's no break. There's no like, oh, we're gonna take a nap time, everybody go to bed, or everybody eat food together. And boy, do I miss the school lunches back then. They
yeah.
were
The
actually
horse,
really,
right? You call it the horse.
yes.
Yeah,
And then we used to have the那个 plates
that's
盘子,
right.
and you put your food and you section it out in
Yeah,
there. And I enjoyed the food. I enjoyed it. And when I came to the States, it's just like, oh. this is different. And you get
Yeah,
the,
the
on
school food in the
Fridays,
States was so bad.
Fridays were the only good days where there was good food.
Yeah.
Fridays because you get the pizza, but the
Yeah.
pizza is not really that good. And you get the fried chicken section, but you have to pay extra for that. And it's so funny. I'm not gonna say which school I went to, but the lunch lady, she was actually Chinese, but
Yeah, usually they are Chinese. Yes.
yes, and she will give me like certain things that are supposed to be extra, like she's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh,
because you spoke Chinese to her.
yeah, it was just this little small stuff
Yeah.
that
Were you able to speak Chinese to other people when you first started attending school in America / later on in high school?
few in the beginning, not so much. Like we would go to restaurants and stuff, but not really. And I think later on, as I got older and I started to get to know more people, then yes. And then with the whole, like, I finally got my own phone. And back then, I think I had a QQ account, but I don't know. Like right now, if you tell me I don't remember the password, nothing. And I'll speak to my Chinese family like with email back and forth. But as I got older and then like became more responsible, had my own bills to pay, reconnected with a lot of families, and yeah. So now it's pretty even. I have, my little bubble.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is just so absolutely fascinating, and I'm sure the more we kind of do these talks and the more we speak the Chinese, I'm sure you'll realize how much like there will be people who want to interview you. Have you
Oh,
been reached out to for interviews before? Is this like the
I
one of the few?
have.
Okay, tell me more
I
about that.
have. Actually, on TikTok, one of my videos is the Weibo Lu videos of me teaching how to say microwave in Mandarin, got picked up. And I got interviewed in LA with the radio station. It's this is gonna be so bad that 够炒生活.
Oh.
It was just like, I know it's in my head. It's in my head. But they interview, it's the one of the big um radio station in LA. And I was like, I flew out there and did my interview, and it was so much fun. But like one of my TikTok videos went like not really viral, but like it had like 150 something.
Yeah, I see it. I see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was the one that got me an interview. I was just like, oh, that's so awesome. And since then, I was like, oh, let me be consistent with my thing. Maybe I'll get more. But then it's just like to come up with teaching videos every day. I'm just like, 哎呀，算了吧，不行，我不行，我不行，太
Yeah.
累了，不行。And the thing is, I wasn't really enjoying it,
Hmm.
and I was just slowly, I kind of just like start slacking and slacking and slacking. I was just like, I need to find something where I am able to use Mandarin but enjoy at the same time. So I'm gonna start doing more acting videos, and I hope the people that followed me don't get mad because I'm not doing my daily word for the day lessons and stuff. But I feel like majority of my followers are all probably Mandarin speakers and not really they're learning, but they just like the fact that they have a foreigner that is speaking Chinese and stuff. So I'm hoping that's the case.
Hmm. Hmm.
you
Yeah,
know.
and an idea I just had as you're talking about this. You know how I used to roast the Chinese dating shows? I've been slowly this year moving that onto a different platform so that way, I can use the F word once in a while if I really feel the
Right.
need, right? So I would love to invite you to one of those. We can, it's going to be live stream like this, but we can kind of watch the video together and then we can sort of translate and roast. So that's an invitation. Maybe that could be something that you find fun too, and then you can
That's
roast
fun.
shows that you're interested because there's a lot of Chinese shows that I'm not interested in, but people keep requesting. Like there's all these shows. In fact, there was even a really cool show. It would interview interracial couples in China. So like there was a Chinese lady married to a Nigerian. They had a son and they raised the son in China, and like they were talking about cultural differences. Like that's some cool stuff to kind of analyze. So if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, you know what's so funny? Because back like a couple years ago, I go on YouTube and watch these dating shows, and it's just hilarious. It's just funny that the reasons why the person is not wanting to be with the person, or if they don't have enough money to give to the family, or yeah, it's just funny. Like some of the reason where it's just like, are you seriously leaving because of that? Like, come on, but yeah, that's really, that would be cool. That would be
Yeah,
something.
so I think that's a follow up we can do. So we'll set
Yeah.
something up once we finish this talk, and I will, because my goal is to roast a Chinese show, or not even roast, just to break down, analyze a Chinese show every week. So like we'll get you in on one of them, because as you know, there's like probably hundreds of thousands of episodes if you put all the Chinese dating shows together. There's
Oh,
so
so
many of
many.
them.
So many.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So
they're all
many.
cringe in their own way. Most of the episodes are cringe, like you said. There's like the dumbest reason someone gets rejected and stuff like that, or the dumbest reason someone tries to woo someone.
Yeah. Yeah. It is definitely, for sure.
Yeah,
That would be fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely. So do you study any Chinese now, or is it kind of just like maintaining what you have?
I'm really just maintaining what I have and hanging on with Dear Life is just so funny because um I can tell when my friend actually was really honest. Is like, your Chinese is kind of like you're slacking a little bit. Like, it's not, 退步, I'm like, oh. So I actually already posted about this on my TikTok because I felt some type of way. Like, so I literally bought the book Santi, the Three Guiding
Santi.
Proverbs,
Ooh.
and I bought it all in Chinese. I'm like, okay, let's see. Read the first page. I was like, okay, not too bad. And then start flipping the page. I'm like, like, yeah, let me just. So I bought the English version. So I feel like my Chinese is definitely 退步英文怎么说? It's definitely 退步, like stepping back,
Yeah,
like
or regressing or something like
deteriorating. It's
that.
definitely
Yeah,
deteriorating a
yeah.
little bit. But I really need to, like, it's so funny because back then I downloaded some apps and where I was like studying my Mandarin, just reading on stuff. But then the apps that I downloaded, it's just such an easy level that I was like, I know this stuff. So I found another app where it's a little challenging. And what I lack is consistency. I start off great the first 3 weeks. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll take 10, 15 minutes and increase it. And after that, like the consistency just went away. So I need to though, because I really need to keep it going on so I don't lose it, because I feel like because I use English more now. And then initially that's the other reason why I started my TikTok to begin with, anyways, because whenever I feel like my Chinese is deteriorating, if that's not the right word I want to use, like deteriorating just sounds terrible.
Yeah.
And when I am 退步, like I'm trying to think of a word that's
Yeah,
really
it's hard, especially with language learning, because
yeah,
it's not like you completely forget it, especially if
yeah,
you've spoken it for so long, but it does kind of get buried more in the back of your head, and then it takes
exactly.
longer to get it out.
Exactly. So it's not like it's a level down. I don't know, like it's getting a little bad, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And then that's the couple reason why I started my TikTok videos, just like, okay, if I consistently post daily, and not only I'm teaching people at the same time, all these words are coming back to me. Especially when I downloaded the Douyin, the
Yeah.
Chinese TikTok, just the certain videos I watch, I'm like, oh my gosh, I used to say that phrase a lot and I stopped saying it.
Yeah.
And then everything is like slowly coming back to me. And I feel like at some point in life where I just need to go back and live in China for like 6 months or so, and then everything will just come back
Yeah,
to me.
even 2 weeks probably is enough. If
Yeah,
you spend those 2 weeks just with Chinese people, that's probably
yeah.
all it
Oh
takes.
yeah, yeah,
But 6 months is awesome. Six
yeah.
months
I
will
mean,
definitely,
it'd be
yeah.
nice. It's the
You'll
food.
become a Chinese teacher by 6 months, basically.
That would be
Yeah.
nice. It's so funny though. So I went through a phase where I was vegan for 2.5 years, 3 years. And then I switched. Well, it's like I did vegetarian way back then, cold turkey, just to see if I can do it. And I went back to eating meat. Vegan, did it 2.5 years. And actually, when I was working, because I'm a flight attendant, and when I'm working, I would meal prep, but I'm very I want to say cheap, but I'm frugal, but cheap, I'm cheap. So so I'll buy certain things and I'll buy the beans from raw and I'll make everything from scratch. But the style, like I will soak the bean from the night before and then um pressure cook it 4 hours. So that took forever to meal prep. I was like, I just can't keep because it would take a day and a half for me to meal prep for a 4 day trip, and I need like 6 meals, lunch, and dinner. For breakfast, I'll make like get those little oatmeal packages that I can put in my lunchbox and whatever. And actually, I was just like, that's too much. I can't keep doing this. So I switched to pescatarian. It's coming up. I'm taking forever to get to the point, but I switched to pescatarian, and that's what I am now. So I rotate. Sometimes I'll still do vegan. Sometimes I'll go to seafood. But the point of the story is whenever I move back to China, I not move back, but whenever I go back to China, I am definitely going to be eating meat. I'm going to switch. I'm going to prep myself the first, 6 weeks, prep myself to like my stomach to get back to
Yeah,
because
the
there's
gut
so many
biome. Yeah, the gut
food.
biome needs to get used to it again.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's so many food that I miss
Oh yeah.
when I was in China, like the different things. I'm just like, okay, I am definitely going to eat meat just to, yeah, enjoy
Is
that.
your Chinese food palate? Is it sweet? Is it sour? Is it la? Is it spicy? Tell me more about it. What do you like about Chinese food?
Everything
Okay.
except mala.
Oh,
Like,
so you don't like Sichuan? That's where I'm from. You don't like Sichuan stuff that much.
well, yeah, not to the point. Like Sichuan will have Sichuan is the one that have the gumbao jiding. Like that. I like that. But it's just the ma part. I don't like the numbing part. I like spicy. Spicy I'm okay with, but it's just when you 吃火锅的时候, I don't like the mala. I
Yeah,
don't like
yeah.
that. I
When
don't
it
like
gets to the point where eventually at the end of the meal you can't even taste anything.
yeah, like I don't like that. That's the only thing. But everything else, I like spicy food. Um, I'm not a huge fan. Actually, now you said it, I'm not a huge fan of sour.
hmm
Yes, some, but not where the whole thing is just pure sour. Like I'm not a huge fan of sour. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Last time I was in Sichuan in 2019, lots of sour stuff, lots of very spicy stuff, and for the entire time in China, it felt like something was on fire. Even after I left Sichuan, I went to a different state. It still felt like something's on fire. That's how, like you said, it's true. You got to get your gut biome time right, or else
Mm,
it's like it feels weird the whole time, especially
yes.
when it's that big a change.
Oh, yes. Like you have to. I feel like if it's not something you're used to eating growing up, I usually like say like maybe you should start with little spice because their little spice is probably super super spicy and slowly build up because if you just want to get straight to the business like yeah like you're not your stomach and your butt is not going to be happy.
So you're a flight attendant. Do you ever have Chinese
I have
passengers and stuff?
I have and
Yeah.
every now and then I'll try to surprise just to be extra just to there are occasions where I will look. I'm one of those flight attendants where if I see their phone, I'm like, what you talking about? Because they will look, they won't think that I speak Mandarin. So I'll read their text messages and it was all very appropriate stuff. It's like, oh, I'm almost like I'm landing, I'm almost here. When are you coming to pick me up? And I'm like, oh, okay, you have your man come pick me up. But there are times where I would um I will like just surprise and start speaking just for the heck of it. And it's so funny that you said that. My friend, she remembers the story and she tells the story every single time to people. And I was like, oh, that happened. So there was a couple or a family. I started speaking Mandarin. They just got so excited. They wanted to take a picture, and I had the picture moment. I was like, sure, whatever. I'll take a picture. Um, and then I'll have some times where there's some passengers where I actually connected with them, where we're connected on WeChat. Yeah. So I've used my Mandarin. There's one time where I said certain announcement in Mandarin just for the there was like it was like a plane full of Mandarin Chinese speakers, and I'll say make an announcement, you know. So yeah, I've
That's
gotten
so cool. It sounds like we need to give you a raise and get you to do those international flights to
I
China.
know, right?
Those are
I
kind of bad
know.
for the body, I think, right? As a flight attendant.
It's okay, like because I am with regional airlines, so we fly mostly domestically, and
Mm-hmm.
I am enjoying the fact that I have a line, and a line is where you would know your schedule for the month. I am not
Mm.
on reserve, and I don't see myself going back like to go mainline. Excuse me, go mainline and trying to be back on reserve again. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm always open for it. You never know.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Wow. Okay, so 2023. We talked about you're doing acting. What else? What else do you plan? What's next for you?
That's that to be honest, that's it. The 2023 is just do more acting
Mm-hmm.
and consistency.
Yeah.
You know what, let's do that. Consistency in 2023 of just being consistent. And I feel like motivation is kind of, yeah, but motivation doesn't really, it's not the thing per se, because you can be motivated but it will go away. But it's the consistency
Yeah.
of trying to do that, and that's what I lack. And I feel like if I had consistency growing up, because now that I'm adult, you're always going to be your way of how you do things.
Yeah.
And I was trying to slowly sprinkle myself some consistency.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I think that's a great thing to aim for. That's my goal too. It's just like there's things I always enjoy doing, but just consistency because I
Mhm.
gave myself reason to do other things. But like talking to people, even roasting or analyzing more Chinese dating shows, a lot of Chinese culture. I want to do that again, even
Yeah.
if I don't necessarily feel motivated, but it's just something we can do and we're good at. So why not do it, right? Even if you don't
Yeah.
feel the motivation every day, just be consistent.
Yeah. Definitely. Like, because whenever I go back to LA, I'll reach out for sure. Just to like do some contents.
Yeah.
Let's create some contents and
Yeah,
just
exactly.
go from
So
there. Are
definitely
you on TikTok?
I am not on TikTok, and
Okay.
part of it is because I used to work at the company, so I know that
Uh,
my data can be accessed directly, unfortunately, by certain people.
mhm.
So I shy away from that stuff. But then I also tell people, for anyone that thinks that's too like scary, well, Facebook, all these apps have
All
access
of
to our
it.
information. So don't not get TikTok just because certain people have access to your data, because no matter what, if you're using the phone, somebody has access to your data that you don't want. That's the
Exactly.
unfortunate part.
Yeah.
So,
That's how I say people, like, if you, I say you have a cell phone, yep, that's all you need. Any
yeah.
social media to always, because even like the game apps, it's so funny that I would download a certain game and then I'll go through Facebook and then it will have like some kind of ad related to a game or similar. And I'm like, yeah, and I know pretty darn well I didn't type or anything, but it's all linked in, because every time it'll ask you, do you allow the app to track your information and all that stuff? The fact that you download something to begin with, that's a consent
Yeah.
that you can have access to
Yeah.
it. But I mean, I have nothing else to hide, so if you're gonna boost my content up, go for it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
will. So I do have a TikTok account that I created years ago, but since I don't have the app, I will go through the website. I'll log in. You'll get a new subscriber for
Oh,
whatever
awesome.
that matters. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Cool. So
Cool.
I think this is a good stopping point. I think for future talks, besides getting you on the other platform to kind of have fun with Chinese dating shows, the other thing I'm really curious, this could be another talk for another channel, is like, how is dating like for you? So that's a to be continued. Like dating because you speak
Oh,
Chinese.
that'd
Like, do
be,
you date Chinese
yeah,
people? Like, so that's another talk we can save for the future, because I think a lot
yes.
of Chinese Americans are really curious about that too, because you grew up in China. Like, do you find yourself attracted to not just, let's say, Americans and Africans, but
Oh,
also Chinese people? Yeah.
I'm attracted to any guy
Yeah.
that is going to treat me well. I'm very open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
I'm over it, but that, we can't give all the tea right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but
Exactly.
that would be a good topic to talk about for
Yeah.
sure.
And then the other topic I thought about for a future talk is, so when I first discovered your videos many years ago, I remember since then you were still sort of learning English. You spoke English like a Chinese girl speaking English. And I was like, this is so cool because like, you know, like, and then, so like another topic, how long did it take you to kind of speak English more natively? Because now you speak English not with that like high Chinese girl pitch anymore. So I'm like, like, that's another talk we could talk about. That's a really fascinating topic.
Hi everybody, my name is Jassa Deen. My Chinese name is Shasha. I was born in Sierra Leone, West Africa.
Oh my gosh. I feel like sometimes I still do it too. Especially if I'm not talking to my passengers, like I'll do that high-pitched voice.
And that is totally fine too. I'm not saying don't speak like that. So yeah.
That's crazy. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So this is a to be continued. This is only part 1.
Yes, definitely. That's awesome.
Definitely. So guys, Jassa Deen, I will have her social media linked. And thank you again, Jassa.
Thank you. Bye, Jerry.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.